And welcome to the 7th episode of From Melbourne to Madrid. We have one of the world's fastest speedcubers on. That is Luis Andres Marino.
I could see that coming.
Luis, do you have any tips for Felix?
Oh, stay composed, man. That is key. I mean, if you panic, you're going to lose the cube.
This is true.
Felix, you recently went on a trip to China and Malaysia. How did you find the trip in general?
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. So that was last month, or for about 4 weeks. So I was in Beijing for 1 week, but it was kind of outside Beijing in this little town, which was near like a TV studio. And basically it was this Chinese TV network that was filming this sort of game show. And they invited me and some other people there to do a kind of exhibition thing, battle on their game show. So it's just like a little bit of a contest. And I think that's going to be shown on Chinese TV at some point early next year. But yeah, that was just for a bit of fun. And then went to another city in China for a couple of weeks to visit a factory who's like my sponsor, I guess, and go to a competition there. And then went to Malaysia for just over a week and went to another competition. So it was a fun trip.
Cool. So with your sponsor, are you still sponsored by GameCube? Is that?
Yeah, so that's who I've been sponsored by for the last 2 years or so. And yeah, so they're based in a city in China. They operate out of there, and I do some things for them here and there, like bits and pieces of work, some translation, like kind of like feedback on their cubes. And yeah, me and two friends were lucky enough we went to the competition and went to their factory and offices and things like that. So yeah, it was fun.
Cool. And with your competition was it in Malaysia? I think you broke some world records again. You had a sub 6 or sub 5 average for the 3x3 cube.
That's the standard cube. Sub 6 average, 5.80. But I'd done one sub 6 average beforehand in another competition earlier this year, which was 5.97, but managed to break that in Malaysia.
Yeah. So because like in these competitions, you're seen as, one of the best, and all the eyes are focused on you. There's kind of a spotlight. Do you thrive under that pressure, or can it be a little bit daunting sometimes?
I wouldn't say I thrive under like having a big audience focus purely on me. I guess over time I've gotten more used to it. Like previously when I was younger, I went to some Australian competitions and, there was less people, there were fewer people. They were used to me being there and doing like good times and stuff. But when I went to like the big competitions, it was, pretty nerve-wracking having hundreds of people watching at once. Nowadays, I would say I'm a little bit used to it, and I basically just try and not look at anyone watching. Like, don't look at the crowd or the crowd size. Just kind of stay focused on just what's happening in front.
Lewis, what do you do when you're under pressure? What are the things that you do? Because Felix, or one thing I noticed with Felix is that he tends to, with his breath, breathe in like almost every time before he solves a cube. And I think that's a good way to steady yourself as well. What do you do, Lewis?
For exams, that would be handy, wouldn't it? No, I mean he's right. When you have big crowds, I mean you don't want to get, you don't want to lose your concentration with any. I mean, especially because you're supposed to solve it in such a short space of time. I don't even know how you keep breaking those records. Like I've been comparing some of them. It's just like with the Spanish records, because this is going to lead to my next question, Felix. But probably for a Spaniard, right? Like it's 7.6 seconds for 3x3. What would you rate that out of 10? Like just 7.6
seconds average. Is that the Spanish national record?
Yeah, like for you,
Is that
be
Carlos
honest
or
with that.
Dario?
How good is that for you?
Is that Carlos or Dario who has the record?
Yes, he knows. Dario.
Yeah, Dario. Well, 7.6 is pretty competitive. That'd get you a win in most competitions around the world. I think that's ranked. That's definitely ranked within like the top 50 or so in the world. And he's like semi well known, Dario. So that's pretty good. But it's 7.6 isn't going to win you like a big competition these days.
Yeah, not as against you, but especially. Because yeah, I mean, this was going to lead me to my next one, which I'm pretty excited about. The European Championship next year. We're hosting it.
Been researching.
Is that like one tournament you could compete in, or?
So the European Championship, they hold that every 2 years, and I went to the last one. It was in the Czech Republic, but I guess all the titles and all the prizes and all the awards just go to the Europeans. But because speedcubing is such like a open and welcoming community, there's plenty of like international people that just go to Europe because it's normally in the European summer. People like to take time off, whatever they're doing, study or if they have holidays, go there, catch up with lots of friends, and hang out and go to this big competition. So it obviously European Championships, they crown the best European, and it should be about a contest between those guys. But yeah, heaps of other internationals go along. So at this stage, I definitely want to go to the European Championships in Madrid next year.
Yeah, come over.
Yeah,
bring Jono with you.
Lewis, you should teach Felix some Spanish before he heads over. You know what I mean?
Uno, dos, tres, yeah, for the cube.
Basically.
Do you know any other languages, Felix, aside from English?
Unfortunately not. I've been far too lazy to put effort into learning something else. At the moment, if I was to learn something else, I don't know even what I would learn. Like, because I find that a lot of Europeans and Asians, they learn English because it's very practical and it's useful for them. But for me, I don't know what I would actually find like that would pay off in terms of usefulness as a language. Like I imagine Spanish would be the first thing they would learn, maybe Chinese or something, but I still don't see it. It would be a lot of work to become fluent in a language. So yeah.
Is that one of the beauties about speedcubing? Because the sport itself, well, actually, before I go into that, do you consider speedcubing as a sport?
Personally, probably not. I think I see it more as like a competitive hobby alongside things like chess and like video games and cup stacking. But I don't want to put it with cup stacking. But it's like activities of that nature. I see it placed in those, and I don't know. Some people would call those sports, but I think it's like more of a competitive hobby or competitive something.
Yeah. Would you say it's also a mixture of an art and a science?
I mean, a little bit. Like when you're doing a solve, there's plenty of processes and like algorithms and things that you can learn and perform in the solve. But also in the solve, you can get pretty creative, and there's a lot of room for flexibility and coming up with things and solutions on your own. Maybe a little bit, but I would never say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I was getting at was like one of the things about speedcubing is that it kind of goes above and beyond like language barriers, because all people from all across the world can participate in the community, and it seems very open and a friendly environment from the outside looking in. When you started, Felix, was the environment, like the openness, was that always there, or did that develop?
I do feel like that was always there. Early on, like in the early 2000s, when people started communicating via the internet about Rubik's Cubes and speed solving, that was kind of how the first competitions were born, were from these groups of people, communities online, talking about, how to solve the cube. So I think from the very start, it was a very community-based thing. And so when I started getting into it, I was kind of that was kind of the vibe. You go to competitions firstly to hang out with friends and enjoy the atmosphere, and secondly to compete. And I think that's something that even the top guys, when the people that I looked up to when I started out solving Rubik's cubes, they were all very friendly and willing to help people out and talk to people at competitions. And so I think that's something that has just been passed on through the years. And the community atmosphere has definitely been like facilitated over many years.
Yeah. Can that also be, as much as it is a good thing, can that be a little bit of a distraction sometimes when you're one of these elite cubers going for, kind of, well, not necessarily world records, but going for fast times? Can it be a distraction in some way, or is it just a positive thing?
I would say a little bit. Like in an ideal world, I'd be able to go to these competitions and just like sit down, and if I wanted to warm up, I would just warm up by myself. And like, I would have, I would like have everything much more organized and like, treat it a lot more seriously. But sometimes when you go to these big competitions, especially, people want, there's not enough time at the competitions. People want, some pictures and autographs and that sort of thing. And at the competitions, even the best guys, the guys who have like, the guys who have the biggest, I guess, following, or like they've got a lot of YouTube subscribers, or they've broken records, or for some reason they're like notable within the cubing community. They're all in there together. So you can be, warming up, sitting on a table, or competing with like just, a beginner cuber. So that's an interesting part about the competitions, is that everyone's in there together. There's no like really fast section. There's no like beginner cuber section, which makes it really nice and friendly as well. But sometimes, yeah, especially when there's a lot of people who want photos and autographs, it can take away from things like warm up time and that sort of thing. But I don't think it affects my performance that much.
It's trying to find the extra 10th of a second there.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you find, Felix, that your times are kind of improving overall? Obviously, the world records would indicate that. I remember I had you on, I don't know, maybe it was 2 years ago or something, and you said because your times in the bigger cubes were still improving, but there were, because you already were solving it so fast, like the normal size Rubik's Cube, the 3x3, that improvements were minimal. Has there been any drastic improvements, not in terms of the time, but just the efficiency of solving a cube?
I would say in the past few years, the biggest changes, like people continue to improve, and compared to a couple of years ago, there's heaps more people at or around my level. So it's become far, far more competitive at the top. And I would say, I don't know if that's necessarily down to methods, but one thing that has helped is hardware. Hardware always gets better over the years, and yeah, these cube companies keep coming out with new and better cubes, which help to shave off, a few seconds here and there, or a few hundredths of a second here or there. But particularly with bigger cubes as well, yeah, there's been far more improvement in some of the longer size events. So for example, the 4x4 cube, at the beginning of this year, I think there were like 2 people who had like a 26 average, and the 26 average was a world record. Now I think there's like 10 people who have under 26 seconds average because of hardware improvements, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be a big thing. I'd assume that the hardware is consistent across all competitions. Like the competitors involved would have to have one kind of style of hardware, or is it just random?
No, you can bring your own cube and use whatever hardware you like, as long as it's a Rubik's cube, and as long as it functions like a Rubik's cube. It doesn't matter if it has stickers, or if it doesn't have stickers, or if the designs are slightly different. As long as it satisfies the basic principles of a Rubik's cube, then you can use it.
Mm-hmm. And with your 3x3 world record average, again, well done on that. I noticed, yeah, so I think the first 3 or 4 times were really fast, and then the last one, it was still very quick, but you got 9 as an outlier.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, was that just because of like I actually read your blog, by the way. Cubeskills.com is Feliks's website. Go check it out. He's got tremendous blogs. One of them was a commentary on his 3x3 world record average. And I was wondering, were you a little bit more adventurous when you got the 9-second solve, because you had already gotten, you know, those 5s and then 1 6, or was it just like some, how do you say, like a not noticing something on the cube?
So the way the world record average works is that you get 5 solves, and they take out the best and the worst, and they take the average of the middle 3. So after the 4th solve, I already had broken the world record average. So even if I got like a DNF or like 20 seconds on my last one, it still would have been a world record average. So going into the last solve, the only thing that I could change was to improve my average. And the only way I could improve my average was if I got under 6.13 seconds, which was my worst time at that point. And essentially I went in, did the solve, and about 6 seconds in, I kind of knew that, you know, it wasn't going very well, and it was going to be the worst time anyway. So when I was like getting to the last layer, the last few steps of the Rubik's Cube, I kind of sat back and kind of gave up on the solve, because it wouldn't have affected my times anyway.
Yeah, he could
yeah.
What's that?
Definitely.
You could just afford to do that. I mean, you already.
It wasn't going to make a difference whether I finished it in 7 seconds or 9 seconds. Like if I was still going, if I had messed up before that, I don't know. I imagine I would have done that one in around 8 seconds, or between 7.5 and 8 seconds, based on what I can tell in the video. But yeah, like I already knew I was at over 6 seconds, so I don't know. I should always. It's a good habit to actually just make sure I continue and finish solves right to the end. But at that point, I didn't really care.
Well, no, it makes sense. I mean, because the calculation, how it works, the high score minus the worst score, and then you get the average of the 3 other solves.
Exactly.
So,
So I would never do that in like. I would like to think I would never do that in, you know, one of the first 4 solves, because you never know what you can get after that. But if it's the last solve and you've already got 4 really good times, then if it's going to be your worst, it's not going to make a difference. But yeah, I should try and finish solves completely to the best of my ability always, because you never know what can happen.
So how did you know that you had the world record by that stage? I remember one time, I think it may have been when you got 5.97, you actually tried to calculate it yourself. But this time, how did you know that after the first 4 solves that it was going to be a world record average?
Right. So the first solve was 5.9, then the next 2 were 5.2. And so based on that, so one of the 5.2s was my best, but the other 5.2 and the 5.9 were already going to be counting in my average. So when I got a 6.1, the previous record was 5.97. I knew that after I got the 6.1, even if I got my worst time on the last one, I would have a 6.1, 5.9, and 5.2 counting. And the average of that was lower than the previous world record. Sometimes when you're not sure, like 5.2, 5.9, 6.1 is clearly like lower than 5.97 as a mean of those 3 times. But sometimes when you're not sure, like say I would have got like a 5.6, a 5.9, and a 6.2, then I might have had to like calculate it in my head, or with a calculator, sorry. But when it was a bit more clear in this case that I'd already had 3 solves, which when you average them were under the record.
Yeah, Felix, I saw on a previous interview before this one, I think it was about this record in particular, and they set up the exact same scramble that you had to solve, I think. And I talked to John about this. I'm like, did you set that scramble up? Like so when it's completely solved all the way back to how you have it initially, or who did that?
So when you go to competitions, they have like a computer program which generates random scrambles for the Rubik's cubes. And after the competition, these scrambles are all made available publicly so that people can easily, go back and do things like that and, check the scramble in round 1, group B, etc.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I didn't know that. Because I'm like, maybe Feliks is so good, he set it up himself as well.
Either that or like, yeah, well, that's definitely possible. Like you can just watch, you can find the scramble, you can like figure out how to put it into the scrambled state just based on a video as well, but it's a little bit harder. You have to like, how most people do it is they like analyze the video, figure out where all the colors are, input that into a program, and then the program will show them how to get to that scrambled state.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And when it comes to speed cubing, Feliks, I also heard another interview you did, and you said, when it gets to the really quick times, like the world-breaking record times that you've said plenty of. I think you've said over like you've broken the world record over like 90 times roughly. Is that correct?
So not the 3x3 record, but on across various different categories, across the single and average records, I've broken now 115.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
One of my goals for a long time was to try and break over 100 world records, and I don't know, that was kind of nuts when I did it.
That's not even fair anymore.
Yeah. So yeah. I go on.
No, I was just going to say, obviously it takes a lot of practice to get to that level. Like I remember you telling me once in another interview that, it's about hard work and getting there and just practicing. Because you told me that speed cubing is not as intimidating as people make it out to be.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone can learn how to solve a cube and practice enough to get. Well, I guess anyone can get like sub 15 if they don't have any physical or like mental impairments, I think. But also the number of records is like, I've done that over like eight years and like 70 competitions and things like that. So it's not like, it's not like 115 in a year or two. It's a long time.
Mate, yeah. You're just so humble. That's your problem. Because to me, like even if you like, I think anyone can solve it. That's true, but to do the times you do, and
it takes a lot of practice. Yeah.
I mean, that's just another level. Let's face it.
Yeah. What would you label Feliks as if we were using sport terminology? Is he, the creme de la creme, the elite, Lewis? What would you say?
You would say the Federer of speed cubing, with no doubt. I'll probably take that as well. But thing is, see, that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Not because, he was saying, Roger Federer as a comparison to you. That not just because of like how successful they are, but the personalities align. Like I can see that in terms of the humbleness and
that's true.
It's like the first thing that comes to mind with Feliks, honestly. And then if you are to come over to Madrid, I'll probably even be more certain of that because, man, it's 115 times you've broken it. I mean. Or 8. I mean, through 8 years, I think that's just incredible.
Oh yeah, well that's across like different.
Because some people play it now more and more.
That's across different events as well. Like for example, in the Rubik's Cube competitions, they have cube sizes from 3x3, 4x4, 5x5, 6x6, up to 7x7, and they have like a single category and an average category. So
yeah, but I know like there are lots of categories, but at the same time, I'm thinking that's more opportunities for other people who maybe are not good in one category to beat you at another one. And whenever they beat you, you go and improve it.
Heaps of people do specialize in terms of, like pick an event or a set of events, a small set of events that they're really good at. Even I specialize to a degree. Like I do all the cube events and the one-handed event and one other side event as like my main events, which is I think that's like 7 different events, but some people only specialize on a couple.
Have you tried to do it blindfolded?
Yeah, I can do that, and I do competitions for that, but I'm not like that's a whole another method, and like I would have to learn heaps more different things, and like practice solving the Rubik's cube blindfolded if I wanted to get really good at it. And yeah, I'm nowhere near a specialist at solving the Rubik's cube blindfolded.
Yeah, even people solve it with their toes as well. It's like, this is really ridiculous.
Oh yeah, they do that. It's a bit silly.
Oh man.
Well, Justin Hayes set a world record for solving Rubik's cubes underwater. Like
Kevin Hayes.
Kevin,
yeah.
sorry, I keep getting his forename wrong. What did you make of that?
If Kevin's watching, yeah. Well, how the speed cubing works is basically there's the World Cube Association, which organizes, which sanctions all of the competitions. And so, for example, this underwater thing was just like I think it's just like a Guinness sponsored world record attempt. So I guess in terms of like speed cubing world records, we wouldn't really consider that. That's not really considered like competitive speed cubing world record. That's more of like a fun Guinness world record.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because it's not like people can actually contest that sort of record very often. Like to get that, you have to get the Guinness official there. You have to set everything up. Whereas people can go to WCA competitions every weekend all around the world. So yeah, it's kind of two different categories, I guess.
And one of the more fascinating competitions I've ever watched, or probably the most fascinating, was when you broke Mats Volk from the Netherlands record by 0.1 of a second. That was incredible because Lewis, I don't know if you've seen it, but you actually had Mats Volk right next to Feliks when Feliks broke Volk's original record, and I
remember seeing it.
Yeah, so Feliks was elated, and then the initial reaction of Mats was one of, because he's a competitor, one of a bit of disappointment. But later, I mean, but that's just the nature of the business. Obviously, like it seems like you're good friends, just judging from But to have your record broken by 0.1 of a second when the guy's right next to you, it's quite,
that one was kind of legendary.
They punch each other behind the scenes, John. We don't get to see that. They just fight. They fight with Rubik's cube.
No. But yeah, that one was kind of it's all pretty funny. Because Mats was here, he was traveling. He did the semester exchange in like Singapore, but then he came to Australia for the Christmas holidays. So he was in Australia for like 3 or 4 weeks, and we went to a couple of competitions here. And so that was just 1 month after he'd broken the world record, and it's pretty hilarious to do it like with him right next to me by 0.01 seconds, which is the smallest margin. So I felt sorry for him, of course, but I was happy to get it. But that's since been broken, as you will know.
Yeah, and 0.1 of a second. So obviously, to finish the Rubik's cube time, you have kind of something which I don't know what it's called, but something that senses, you put your hands on and then you touch down when you want to finish the time.
Yeah.
What's that called?
The stack mat.
The stack mat, yeah. When you get to these world records where, they're being broken by under 5 milliseconds, under 10 milliseconds, is it about how fast your hands can touch the stack mat, or is like because it's the margin for error is very minimal? I'm just wondering what differentiates certain times from each other, especially the fast ones.
Well, I think as far as I'm aware, the current stack mats that we use are accurate to at least 1/100th of a second, which is what they use in competitions. And don't quote me on this, but I think they're accurate to 1,000th of a second as well. Actually, no way. I don't think that's true. But they're accurate. I'm not sure. I need to double check this or look it up. But they're accurate like no one's doubting the accuracy of the actual timing equipment. And also, I don't think at this point any competitors actually practice, starting the timer and picking up the cube and then stopping the timer. Like, when you're going to finish the cube. So you're getting ready as you're doing the last few moves to just drop the cube and put your hands down on the timer simultaneously. So people do that pretty quickly. So it's not a matter of, I stop the timer faster or he stopped the timer slower. It just happened to be that small of a margin.
Mm-hmm. And I also heard in another interview you did that solving a Rubik's Cube at times can be, like the world record times we're speaking of, can be a little bit luck dependent, obviously, because it depends on like the different scramble of a cube. Were you have the latest, like obviously Patrick has the 3x3 record of 4.69. You had it before that with 4.73. Were these what you would term as luck dependent solves?
They all pretty much are. So when you're doing a single solve, like if it's that fast, if it's under 5 seconds, then there's going to be some element of luck involved. So fundamentally you're going to be doing less turns on the Rubik's Cube. So say normally I do 55 turns in my solves, and maybe in a world record I might do, well, in that world record I think I did somewhere around 41 moves in the actual solve. And that can be based on a couple of different things. So for example, Matt's and Patrick's solves, the ones before and after mine, they both had a skipped step at the end of the solve. So basically you do the solve and you get to the last stage and you get lucky and the cube's already solved. And like their actual scrambled states of the Rubik's Cube were pretty normal, like nothing particularly special. And they did the solve and then got lucky at the end. Whereas with my scramble, I got lucky at the start. So I had quite an easy actual scrambled state of the Rubik's Cube. So I was able to do like a lot of it very early on in a very short amount of time, but I had to do like the last few steps of the solve as well. So if I got like doubly lucky, had the easy start and the lucky finish, then that would be like insane. So yeah, some solves have luck at the start, some have luck at the end.
But with the really fast times though, I mean, like they're so quick that that these moves that you're doing, because I was reading your blog when you got the 3x3 record average, and it's very detailed. You provide very detailed analysis of each scramble. And I was just wondering in my head, like how one could solve a Rubik's Cube that quickly when that much goes into it, or is it, like obviously only. Well,
yeah. After practicing enough, it kind of becomes subconscious, and it's like an automatic process. So it's not like it's not really like I'm calculating all these different things in my head as I'm going along. I'm just doing kind of what I feel intuitively is the best thing to do at that point in time. And as you'll notice, like sometimes I make mistakes. But yeah, that's the reason that because luck is involved, people pay more attention and give more weight within the speed cubing community to like the average world records, because they're based on an average of 5 solves.
Mm-hmm. So would you say like practice is key, maybe a lot more compared to other for you it's not really a sport, but for other competitions, like because you're not calculating it in your head, but if you stop practicing maybe for a bit, like those times maybe would drop significantly for you, or
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. If I stop for a little while, it generally doesn't take me very long to actually to regain the speed. So for example, like there's periods of months and months where I don't practice certain events, like the bigger cubes or some side events, and I get like a little bit slower, but it doesn't take me long to get back to normal and then start improving again.
Is speed cubing an obsession or is it a passion?
I'd like to say passion. I think.
Well, he could have said both for a minute there.
Yeah, pretty obsessed. Pretty obsessed with it though. It's kind of fun.
Well, no, but like some people in to be at the top, they consider that, you know, you have to be obsessed. Like, do you know Magnus Carlsen, Felix, from chess? So
Yeah.
he says, you know, one of the things about being like one of the best chess players in the world, you can't just, you know, go to the tournament and just, you know, consider it almost like a hobby. Well, you can, but like he more in the sense was saying that you have to think of chess. Yeah, it has to be part of your daily life almost.
Right.
Would you say speed cubing is similar in that sense with you, or can you rely without it for a day?
Oh, I can definitely go without solving a cube for a day or a week or however long. Like as long as if I have something else going on, then I won't touch a cube. But also at this stage, like speed cubing competitions and the competitive scene isn't as developed as chess competitions. So, for example, there's heaps of paid professional chess players going around the world and going to these competitions and doing it for a living. And chess is a lot more popular as well. So there's a lot more people that can come from the talent pool. Or with more people, there'll be more talented people, I guess, or people who practice more and get a lot better. Whereas speed cubing isn't really at that stage yet. Like there's kids who can pick it up and within 4 or 5 years could easily be at the top. And you can get pretty world class. Like it compared to chess and compared to other sports, you can feasibly get to world class levels at speed cubing events in a shorter amount of time. And you don't have to have like special talent or buy heaps of equipment or anything like that.
Well, Lewis, that sounds down your alley. I reckon you should go into the Madrid competition coming up for speed cubing.
But you still need to take it very seriously and like practice a lot. But you don't need to have a coach or anything like that.
Maybe I would, if I were to sign up for the European.
I think you're too old. The important thing in speed cubing is to start really young, because once you're this old, then you don't have that much time to start out and practice.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, to compare with chess, though, it's for me personally, I don't think it's like I think all sports are growing right in general, like esports. I mean, because more of us are on this planet, but that's just natural. It was always going to happen. But Rubik cube, I mean, because you solve world-class players, especially because you solve it so fast. It's not like how long would a competition day maybe last? Because you guys are so quick. I mean,
this is true, but there's a lot of logistics that go into these competitions. So the World Championships this year was actually the first ever 4-day Rubik's Cube competition. And the reason it needs to be 4 days is because you have 17, I never remember if it's 17 or 18 different events that they actually hold. I only compete in about half of the events, but they hold, I think it's 17. I think it's 18. I don't know. I need to check. But they hold all these events, and there were 900 competitors, and you're holding multiple rounds of different events. And even for most of the events, they even have like qualifying times. So, for example, you can't enter most of the side events unless you have a decent world ranking in those events. But for the main event, the Rubik's Cube, it's all open to anyone. So anyone, this year, I think it was anyone who previously competed was eligible to compete. So that's the one that takes up a lot of time, because if you have 1,000 people doing 5 solves each, that takes a lot of time for sure. But it's good that it's 4 days, because then you can hang out with everyone.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's
definitely
cool that you can travel, man.
Yeah. No, it would be very interesting if Felix, well, it would looks likely that, well, is it official that Madrid will host, the Cuban Championship?
It is official, yeah, I looked it up.
It's on the internet. It's definitely official.
Yeah, I'm like, he can come over now and bring John with him. But
Lewis, I was the one.
Next year.
I saw. I went on your Twitter, Felix, and I actually tagged Lewis in the cubing post to do with Madrid. So
no, look, I mean, I sort of we're not a bad country at speed cubing. I mean, I have heard, I heard of obviously the national record and stuff, but if Felix come over and teach us maybe how to be a bit faster, then that would get us up the rankings a bit more.
Oh, maybe. It'd be cool to see a Spanish cuber win the European Championships. Definitely possible. Definitely possible.
Yeah, well, I think, who was it? No, the blindfolded one was not just national, but European record as well. It was solved by like a 15-year-old girl.
Better from Spain.
See?
She won the European Championships for Rubik's Cube blindfolded 2 years in 2016.
Yeah, it's just again like because of the media. It's like does it, I guess, annoy you at all or matter to you that it doesn't get as much attention as other sports or competitions, or it doesn't bother you really?
No, it doesn't annoy me or bother me at all.
Records are pretty, but those records are pretty amazing though. Like I don't know.
The blindfolded stuff, yeah. I think at the moment with the competitions, they're not always set up to be necessarily spectator friendly. So you will find at like a fair amount of competitions, if you're just there and you don't know anything about Rubik's Cubes, it might seem a little bit kind of like an insider community. But like obviously these big competitions, European Championships, World Championships, they're pretty exciting to watch, even as someone who doesn't even solve Rubik's Cubes or know anyone. But yeah, most of the competitions, everyone who goes is a cuber. So yeah, but yeah, that's why media wouldn't cover like smaller competitions or records or anything like that.
Which I'll definitely go next year. I'm pretty convinced. I'm pumped. As an spectator,
awesome.
Don't get me wrong.
I would say go to the final day on Sunday, because that's when they have most of the finals of the main events. Sunday afternoon. It's always the one.
Yeah, I'll take your advice for that, definitely.
Sweet.
Will your father David be going to that, Felix? Because I noticed that he's solving cubes as well, which is interesting. Would he be eligible to go to Spain?
Oh, just if you need a translator, I'm up for it.
Easy. I don't know what their plans are in terms of competitor limits and like qualification times, but I think for the Rubik's Cube event, he would be eligible, but I don't think he'll be able to go next year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what you said. It's better if you start young, isn't it? Like just in general, because you're not as, time poor, not as many commitments, especially when it comes to competitions. It makes sense. You
won't find many top, athletes or anything in any field, except for like academia, or I don't know. You won't find many, top people at the top who started doing whatever activity it is when they were 18, 19, 20.
It's one of the reasons why that is in speed cubing is because like things come autonomously to you, like just different ways to solve a cube. Like where does that factor in speed cubing?
The age thing.
Yeah.
I just imagine it just comes from, younger kids going on YouTube and looking up these things and then getting a cube for themselves and kind of becoming obsessed with it. I think that's where a lot of the younger speed cubers come from. That's a good question. But you also find in some places around the world, different places around the world, the cubing scene is a lot older than in others. So for example, in like America, there's a lot of younger kids. Like if you go to a competition, there would be heaps of young kids there. Whereas if you go to Europe, most of the communities are 18 plus on average.
Would you be one of the elder participants when you go to competitions now?
If I go to a comp in Australia, I'm definitely like one of the 5 oldest competitors, probably. Maybe not 5, but like, yeah, definitely one of the much older competitors. And even in other competitions around the world, one of the older competitors for sure.
Yeah, but I guess that's an advantage because you have that experience of going to competitions, feeling kind of the energy or that, or just the adrenaline that you get and how that affects the solving of a cube at times. So that experience would be invaluable, I would think. If you could give any advice to the Felix Zemdegs as you were back then, as you are now, what would it be?
Oh, that's a hard question. Well, I was gonna say I do get nervous, in finals at big competitions. That's always going to happen. That always, I don't know if you can ever really get rid of that or try and fight it. I just kind of accept it and kind of mentally deal with it. It's like, okay, this is the final. You just got to do it. Advice to Felix younger. Oh, that's a hard question. Because I'd want to say, like, don't take it too seriously. But then if I wouldn't have taken it seriously, then it wouldn't have been so good and so fun. Advice to younger Felix. How old? Like,
Let's say after your first few world records, like kind of the start to middle of your speed cubing career.
This way. That's such a hard question.
That's fine if you can't think of anything.
I don't know. Advice would be like make sure like you give people time and like you're friendly to everyone. But I think I've kind of done that. But it'd be I guess so. I think my advice would be especially as I was starting out and getting a bit more popular on YouTube and getting more known and like notable in speed cubing is that like you don't realize sometimes like little kids always have their idols and stuff, and even when I was younger kids looked up to me, and I probably didn't realize enough like how much like small things that I do could make them happy. So I would say like something like that. It's like do things for the people that look up to you, I guess, or like make them happy.
Yeah, is that a conscious thing that you have in the back of your mind now that because you have over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, of which I am one. Lewis, are you a subscriber of Feliks' YouTube channel?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
All good. So I put Lewis on the spot there.
No, it's true though.
No, I believe
if it comes to if it comes to Madrid, he's going to earn many more views.
Fantastic. Having that sort of like subscriber count and like I have some other social media accounts, like you're kind of a role model, especially for younger kids. And I think all the cubers, like the vast majority of the top cubers and stuff are great role models for the rest of the younger kids in the community that look up to them. So yeah, I don't think that really adds very much pressure at all. It's like, I don't know, I wouldn't be doing that much differently even if I wasn't a role model, I don't think.
Yeah, because it's kind of your personality, isn't it? Just to present yourself well. And I guess the Rubik's Cube environment in general seems to be like that too. Do you consider yourself lucky to be a part of that at all?
Oh,
like
yeah,
in terms of like the open... Yeah.
Yeah, very grateful.
Because in some other competitions, it can be very, competitive and, single-minded in its approach. Whereas with you, even though, you're hunting, fast times, you still have, like other speedcubers like Matt's Volk, speedcubers like this, the courtesy as well to, give advice to others. Look, the prime example would be Cube, your website, cubeskills.com, where you actually answer questions in the comments section as well. How did that website start, by the way?
So maybe it was a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Well, actually, even before that, like people always ask me, Felix, do you have some advice for getting my times down? Do you have some advice for this thing? like people ask me heaps of different questions about solving the Rubik's Cube and improving their techniques and ability and things like that. And for a while, I'd answer those questions and say, well, it depends on what you know, like, because for the most part, the answer is it depends. It depends how fast you are. It depends kind of what techniques and methods you're using. Depends what your skills are. So I wanted a way to just say, okay, just go to this website. It's got everything you need, and it's like a self-service. You just go on there, watch the videos, learn the techniques, and improve. And I think it was trying to think exactly when I kind of decided to do this. It was maybe a year and a few months ago, maybe middle of last year. I was like, okay, I kind of want to make this website. And there's a guy in Melbourne who came to some Rubik's Cube competitions who I met a few times, who was a web developer, and he'd set up a similar site for a different hobby, and was kind of interested in making a Rubik's Cube tutorial website. And so kind of talked to him late last year about setting all this up, and away we went.
Yeah, and it's done really well. Like I can see just from the the comments and stuff, and you're very receptive on social media. This is another good thing about you, like because some people
sometimes I think I could be more so. I think I could put a lot more effort into replying to comments, but I'd do a decent amount. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in comparison to some others, just a kind of a generalization, but it does seem that you are receptive, quite more receptive than some others in terms of your notoriety now. And I think that's brilliant because you talk about that, role model aspect as well. Like you're being open to others, and also with your Cube Skill website, like helping others, not just focusing on yourself. And I think that's a really brilliant and selfless thing. So well done on that.
Well, selfless to the extent it is somewhat monetized, the website. So I can't, claim that it's completely selfless, but it's monetized to the extent that I can, pay someone to develop the website and put money back into other different things, bits and pieces here and there, and kind of get a little bit of, like, for the amount that I've put into this, it's not very much, but it's, yeah, no, I think it's a good thing. And like you say, on the replying to things aspect, it's not very difficult. And I kind of find that, there's plenty of other people who maybe don't have as much attention, or, doing other things that they just don't do it for some reason. And the thing is, it's not very difficult at all to, go and like some photos, or go and reply to some comments, or go and like some comments. So again, I don't want to take much credit for that. It's really not a hard thing to do, but it's kind of nice. And I think, if a kid sees that I've liked their comment, then, and it takes like literally 1 second, that's a good return.
Well, it can make someone's day. Like I've had it just because I'm a fan of mixed martial arts, so Ultimate Fighting Championship, and I've had a competitor, the UFC bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt, just like one of my tweets, and that made my day, because he's someone who I just love watching. And yeah, I mean that effect that it can have, it can be profound. So and it's just such a simple thing to do. Yeah,
I try to put myself in that sort of perspective mindset when I do that.
So with your age now, so you're 21 or 22? 21. So what age would you typically say that the elite speed cubers come into their prime? Oh. Is there a general age group there?
That's a good question. Around, I'm trying to think. So the finalists at this year's World Rubik's Cube Championship were all aged between like 15 and 21. So, say more generally, maybe 17 or 18 years old when people are like the best, or maybe most of the best guys at the moment and throughout history have been around that age. But it varies as well. Like there's kids who are younger who do well, and there's kids who are people who are slightly older do well as well. Around 17 or 18.
And do you think one of the barriers, like, because you're still improving with your times, obviously, would you say one of the barriers to you not getting as fast times is, you know, the mental aspect of potentially not liking speed cubing as much as you once did? I'm not saying that will happen, but if you were to see any barriers to you not competing as well as you would have done, what kind of barriers do you think would come up?
Well, the first barrier would be like people catching up, but in terms of me like going forward, there's no way I'm going to be, you know, doing this as heavily in, you know, 3 or 5 years. So the barrier that would come up is, you know, moving on with other things, study and other life related things. And that happens to basically everyone. There's people who are very, very good. And then kind of slowly younger kids get faster and catch up to them and overtake them because they have other priorities in life. But at the moment, well, this year I've taken off kind of school to do a bit of speed cubing and have a lot of fun and travel, and I have no regrets about that. It's been sweet. But yeah, there's no way I'd necessarily even want to do this for very long. Like, I think the fact that it's just been like this year, which has been really cool.
So, Lewis, how would you maintain motivation when it comes to things that you do? What are some things that you do to stay motivated?
Look, I mean, I'm really into marathons at the moment. You know, Felix, maybe other listeners wouldn't know, but
sorry to interject, Lewis. I was just going to say that Felix does do the Connors Run, which is a marathon. Maybe you wanted to describe that, Felix?
It's not a marathon, unfortunately. It's there's 2 runs. There's a 19K and a 10K, and I was planning on doing the 19K this year, but unfortunately,
go for 19. Go for 19.
And I didn't train anywhere near enough, or at all. So I just did the 10K.
No,
but
yeah. No, but I see similarities. Like, it's maybe in speed cube. Well, because he's such a high level of speed cubing, I guess people look to break new records and stuff. I mean, I'm not going to get anywhere near Mo Farah. That's just a fact. Yeah. But I guess you would look for personal records and, you know, push yourself. Obviously, you know, treating your body and looking after it. You don't want to obviously risk it to the limit, but I do see similarities. Like, I'm going to do runs, 2 10K runs from now till the end of the year, and I'm just going to try and improve my times there. And then I'm going to do the half marathon in April, also to improve my time. So, but that's just personal goals. I mean, you don't have to. Same with speed cubing or any of these sort of competitions, right? You don't. I mean, if you think, oh, I'm not going to get to the top, just try and go for your personal records. I would be proud of that itself.
Yeah, you don't need to. The goal with speed cubing, with many other things, definitely not necessarily to get to the top.
I think that's your initial. Wouldn't that be your initial goal as well?
Me personally, that was never my initial goal. So when I started out speed cubing, I saw these guys doing it in less than 10 seconds. I was like, okay, that's amazing. I just want to learn how to solve it. And then I learnt, and then I was like, okay, this is really fun, and it was very addictive. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep practicing this and try to learn things. And my goal was always to improve. It wasn't to improve to get to that level. It was just to keep improving because it was so much fun.
That takes
because I wanted to improve myself.
That takes you so much further in anything, to be honest.
I think so. But then, like, once you get to that stage where you're like around some of the best in the world, then
that's when it
gets a little bit more competitive. Like, you want to like beat other people and break records and stuff like that. But getting to that point, before even getting to that point, it's not really about that. Like, I never thought I could break. When I started, I never thought I could break records like that.
That's such a cool thing that he says that, though, because now that he's done it, I can't say that for running, but not that I'm jealous or anything. It's just like really funny too.
Yeah,
you know, you can now say that 115 times. My God.
Yeah. So, a question I have, Felix, is in what ways can you be creative in speed cubing? Like even if it's like kind of really efficient, quick solves. Where does creativity come? Like we were talking about like in some sort of aspect, some sort of form, Rubik's cubing can be considered not considered directly, but like in parts an art. So what kind of art forms would you say are involved in speed cubing?
One main art form is like kind of the fingers that you use on the cube. So various different people will have different ways that they actually turn and manipulate the cube really quickly. And so some people, for a certain sequence of moves, they might use this hand, this finger, blah 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 blah, and then other people will use different hand and finger tricks. And there's some people who have really cool looking hand movements, and then some people who, when you watch them solve, it just looks like kind of ugly with the hands. So yeah, people have like nice turning styles. And then in terms of creativity during the solve, like when you're solving, say, two pieces at a time, or you found two pieces and you want to solve them, let's say there's 10 different ways that you can actually solve those two pieces. The creativity and like that sort of thing comes into play when you're actually deciding which of these 10 ways should I now solve these pieces, and how will that affect the future state of the Rubik's Cube. But obviously you're not thinking about everything in that moment, you're just using your intuition. But yeah, sometimes it can be kind of like that.
Are you still seeing new ways of like solving cubes, or now that you've been around for a while, anything impressing you lately, or you've seen it all now?
I've kind of seen it all. Like it's been pretty well developed and explored, the potential methods for solving the Rubik's Cube. There's certainly more things that I could learn, which would marginally help my times, and there's other methods that I could experiment with. But yeah, it's been pretty well explored, the speed solving methods.
Are there any other activities aside from speed cubing itself, Felix, that still help with your speed cubing in an indirect way?
I don't know that I necessarily have anything quite like this, which would help speed cubing. I don't think so. Like people might say like piano or chess or something, but I think it's kind of unique. There's not really too many things that overlap with speed cubing that you can do and then will help you with speed cubing. I think it's, if you want to get better at speed cubing, don't do finger exercises. Don't play piano. Just do speed cubing.
And so you mentioned finger exercises. Do such things exist at speed cubing?
No, not really. Not at all.
Okay, so mainly when it comes to faster times, it's just about sticking with the speed cube and practicing, really.
To a large extent, yes.
Okay, so do you ever get bored of speed cubing? Like obviously it's a great passion of yours, but are there any days where you're just like, oh, I can't solve this anymore. It's too, like for me, like I've never solved a speed cube. I've never solved a Rubik's Cube in my life. Like I don't know how to do it. So like just for me, I get that. I just get that frustration of, I just can't be bothered. Not for you. You know how to solve a cube, but because it's kind of repetition. Do you ever get bored of it?
Well, yeah, sometimes. The first thing to that is like there's heaps of different events that you can do. So sometimes if I'm not solving the 3x3 Rubik's Cube well, and I still feel like practicing, but I'm not solving that well, then I might just switch to another event. But there's certainly some times where I get home from something and I'm like, okay, well, I don't really feel like doing any Rubik's Cube stuff right now. And I think especially like in the middle of this year, I went to like a bunch of different competitions and then the World Championships, and I was kind of burnt out after all that right at the end because I've been doing so much speed cubing so frequently, like all day. So yeah, I would get burnt out from like big competitions or going to lots of competitions, but it just takes a little bit of a break. Then you go back.
Are you into meditation, Felix, at all?
No, I haven't really tried it before.
Yeah, because with or not even meditation, but visualization of visualizing yourself of getting a world record. I think that's a really big one in sports. Like
Yeah, I kind of do that sometimes. It's just for fun. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, I'll sit down and pretend that I'm at a competition and do the 5 solves. Like particularly before like big competitions, like a world championships or something. I think that's kind of an important thing to do is practice like in kind of a competition setting, or like try and simulate a competition environment and put yourself in that mindset. Okay, I'm in the finals now. I've got to do these solves, and yeah, try and simulate the environment as best you can. I think that helps.
Man, it would be hard to simulate it though, wouldn't it? It's good
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
tried.
you can never really simulate it, but
Yeah,
you can do various bits and pieces.
it's funny that you tried it. It's good. If you're willing to try new things, that does help, definitely.
Yeah.
So, how many cubes at the moment would you have in the room you're placed in at the moment?
Like
Oh, here we go.
Like 100. But
Yeah,
they're all
so-
everywhere. Like I only use like 10 cubes at any time.
Yeah. So, how do you decide, which cube, you want to use? Obviously, I'd assume your go-to one would be the 3x3. But what are your other favorite cubes aside from that?
Yeah, I'm always practicing 3x3. That's like, well, that's the original Rubik's Cube, and it's the main event. It's the most prestigious event. It's my favorite. My second favorite event is probably like the 5x5, because I've been decent at that one over the years. And I don't really know how I decide. It's kind of pretty random if I want to, how I decide whether I feel like practicing an event. It's just like basically what I feel like. Like if I'm like, okay, I'm done enough 5x5 this last month or this last few weeks, I might change to something different, grab a 4x4, or do some one-handed solves or something like that. It's pretty random. There's no structure.
That helps him, I reckon, Jono, go for longer though, not get bored because there are so many options. I mean,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah, and each is slightly different.
Mm.
Well, some are a lot different, but yeah.
For you, it would be slightly different. For us, it would be a huge difference.
Or maybe, I don't know. I feel like people see people solving Rubik's Cubes, oh, he's solving that one, he's solving that one, kind of seems the same. But when you're solving them, it's for some cubes, it's a completely different process.
Yeah.
So what type of other processes would be involved?
I mean, like solving a 3x3, you're just using kind of, well, most people use a fairly widely known method, but for solving a 5x5, you need to firstly, like it's a bigger puzzle. There's more pieces to solve. So you need to solve most of the cube in kind of a different way it's like completely different to anything that you would do on a 3x3. So you need to do different things on a 5x5. And then some of the 3x3 elements go into solving the 5x5, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess that's where the specialist area comes in, because when you have all these different methods, specializing is probably a good strategy to just keep up to date and hone in your skills. But I know that you obviously hold records at the moment and have in the past for several different events. How have you managed to do that if 3x3 is kind of the main cube that you solve?
A decent amount of practice, but it's also like if I'm solving a 6x6, which is also one of my what I would consider main events, a lot of what I do on the 6x6 is also directly relevant to 5x5 and 7x7. So I feel like when I'm practicing a 5x5 or a 7x7, then some of the skills that I'm practicing will transfer across to the other sized cubes. Whereas for things like 3x3, 4x4, one-handed, not as much. They're kind of a little bit different. But there's also similarities that come across to those as well. So it's not like, yeah, it's not like 7 completely individual events.
And you know, when it comes to speed cubing, like what competitions out there in the future are you really looking to succeed in? Like, for instance, you know, in tennis, right? You have, I know Lewis is really big into tennis. You have the Grand Slams, and then you have these, well, not minor competitions, but the ones below it. And some players like to emphasize the Grand Slams over the tournaments, or some people like to emphasize the tournaments over the Grand Slams. Do you like to prioritize competitions, or like every single competition you go to, you're trying your best?
Well, certainly some competitions mean, like, performance in certain competitions means a lot more to me than others. So the biggest, I don't know, speed cubing competitions are less formalized. There's less of a hierarchy. Unlike in tennis, where it's very clear, you know, you've got the the majors, and then lower competitions or something like that. In speed cubing, you know, you've got the World Championships, that's every 2 years. You've got the European Championships, that's also every 2 years. Asian Championships, Asian Championships, US Nationals. So those are the 4 like biggest speed cubing competitions. US Nationals they hold every year, so that's a really big one. And then Asian Championships, European Championships, World Championships every 2 years. And those are what people would consider unofficially like the 4 majors. And so I think I've won those. I'm trying to think. Well, like getting like a sweep in something like that in like a 2 year period would be cool, but that's really difficult with the level of competition nowadays. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I have any more goals to try and win.
That one you just mentioned. That one you just mentioned.
But not really. I think that's really, but yeah, I don't really think, you know, trying to win those competitions is my goal at the moment, or at least I haven't really thought about that.
You're very competitive, aren't you, Felix? Like, you know, like that must be like a huge thing, like the will to win. Like that must be,
But the other thing is, like, I've been, you know, competing for a very long time compared to other people, so I'm pretty satisfied with, you know, the things I've been able to do, and it is nice sometimes to see other people win. I certainly think that sometimes, you know, people would get bored of me winning different competitions, and I've lost, you know, a few here and there over the years, that's for sure. So I like seeing other people do very well.
So what about you, Lewis? How do you balance your competitive instincts with potentially losing?
I don't take losing very well. I think, I don't think, I want people to win, but I wouldn't take it as easy as probably others do. But that's just personalities, man. I think for Felix, like, if you're still managing to break records, I mean, just I think when you're still in that level, I don't think you're focusing maybe or thinking about other people beating you. You're just constantly trying to improve. And then once you think you're not capable anymore, that's when you'll probably have more time to appreciate other people winning. But if you're still able to win, you should go yourself.
Yeah, I think it's also more about like analyzing your performance relative to your own ability. So, for example, it was like this year's World Championships in Paris. I ended up in 4th position, but you know, the average and the times that I did they were okay, and they were better than the times I did in the final were okay, and they were better than what I did, you know, 2 years ago in the final when I won. It was just that, you know, other people had caught up, so I wasn't like, you know, totally dissatisfied with my times as well. It was just that other people did well as well.
See, my God, just gets quicker and quicker. Would you say that it's just getting like faster every year as well?
Yeah, definitely faster. Everyone's getting faster, and there's more people getting really competitive. Like, you know, for a few years there, like for a few years, 2012, 2013, it was just kind of me and Mats were the two at the top.
Yeah, the invincibles.
But now there's heaps more.
Is there a is there a ranking system in Rubik's Cube? Like obviously they have the records, but do they have like a numerical? Nah, they don't.
No, they don't. But I have heard of someone who's within like the World Cube Association who wants to propose that, because as it gets more competitive, like the records are going to be more and more difficult to beat, and you're going to have people who are, hold the record who get less active and not really competitive anymore. But I think having like a ranking system like that would be cool to see, who's currently the best, not as opposed to, who got the single world record solved.
Consistent.
Who's consistently been performing the best in recent competitions. Because eventually the records will be more luck based.
Yeah, but you kind of like, as we were discussing before, like but like as it goes faster and faster, because like we were talking about how the last 3x3 solves, including one of yours, and there is obviously it's an amazing feat of accomplishment, but to separate the elite of the elite cubers, sometimes just that little bit of luck counts. Do you think in order to break further records, especially the 3x3, that more luck is required as opposed to quickly solving the cube?
To break the 3x3 single, it's definitely come to the point now where you need a decent amount of luck, a reasonable amount of luck, either an easy setup and a really good solve, or like getting lucky at the end of your solve in order to break that record. But for the average, I think it's still beatable, for sure, without any luck, elements of luck.
Mm-hmm. And you've got under 4 seconds, haven't you? Not in a competition setting, but just at home, like when you're uploading like a YouTube video. I think you've got 3 point something seconds, haven't you? And it was 3 by...
I've uploaded a few sub-4 solves on my YouTube channel. Yeah,
so do you reckon there will ever come a point where, well, assume there would come a point where someone would get a 3 point something seconds in competition, but actually I'll rephrase the question: do you perform better without competition or in a competition environment?
I think slightly better without a competition at home.
Yeah, so yeah. I'd assume that'd be different for various people. Like
most people do worse in competition compared to the averages that they do at home. That's for sure. Just because you only get a limited amount of attempts, in an official competition environment, so that puts a lot of pressure on. Whereas at home you can practice and do as many solves as you want, but in comp, it's more nerve-wracking.
Did that video of the 3 point whatever seconds come after they broke one of your records, or because you were just annoyed, you just wanted to break it again? Or?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, but like, how do you get to those 3 point something seconds? Like that's such a quick time. Like Lewis and I can't comprehend how.
For those ones, it's a decent amount of luck and a really easy solve. But yeah, I think that the challenge would be, if someone does get a 3 second solve in competition, it's like, okay, well, that's happened. That's going to be really, really difficult to beat. How do we figure out, who's the best at the moment? Like, a single solve is not going to, it's going to be the person who has the single record is going to be the person who has the single record, and they're not necessarily the best. And it's been that way for a long time. And it's also like, how do you define who's the best? Like, there's people who are doing really good averages in competition consistently now. It's kind of hard to qualify that.
Well, I guess that's where like a numeric ranking system.
Yeah, exactly. So that'd be cool. That'd be cool. And then you'd have people taking because at the moment, if people mess up, they're like, okay, whatever, like this is terrible. Like I'm not worried about these solves anymore because I've already messed it up. But if you have some sort of ranking system, then it's like gives people more incentive to try and do their best all the time. Because at the moment, people only care about doing their PBs, I think.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in a video, or actually it was in the video where you thanked everyone for the 200,000 subscribers that it was a valid point that, you know, there's going to come a time like where it's not sustainable to keep, you know, breaking records. But I think you're still doing very well at the moment. But
yeah, after that, I did break a few. Yeah, but
yeah,
it was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, so I was going to say you contradicted yourself in that. Yeah. In that video, but I guess that comes down to a little bit of like you're a modest person, so
yeah, but also like having done records over these years, like there will be a time when they're more difficult to beat and they're broken with far less regularity. So yeah, we need to figure out how to keep things pretty interesting.
So what other content ideas do you have, Felix, for your YouTube channel? Obviously, you know, you've done, you know, a lot of speed cubing, you know, tutorials on there associated with your Cube Skills website, but even before that too. I still think, like, as a viewer, like I watched quite a few of your videos, and like even for someone who doesn't really understand speed cubing, it's always, you know, really fascinating to see someone at the top of their field just, you know, doing extremely well. I think that records or not, that translates really well into, you know, viewership and but like in terms of other content ideas, have you thought of anything beyond speed cubing in terms of YouTube?
Well, it would all have to be speed cubing related in the end. Well, since I've done since I've made the Cube Skills website, a fair chunk of my spare time has been spent on, you know, making and editing videos and tutorials, and so that's where all the tutorial content has been going. So I don't plan on really putting that onto my own like channel, just because I like to have it separate. In terms of my own channel, well, basically what I've been uploading for the last few years and for a very long time is just speed cubing. So competition videos are always good. Like even if it's not a record, I think good competition times are always interesting to see. And then also beyond that, videos from home, you know, videos of, you know, really fast averages or really good solves on different puzzles, I think is always good content. And beyond that, I'm sure I could do more like Q&A type stuff, maybe some live stream Q&A type videos, even like a weekly series where I just like get sent a bunch of questions and answer those would be fun as well. But I am doing that to some extent with tutorials also on Cube Skills. So trying to say, okay, it's a Q&A, but you can't ask me tutorial-based questions. Let's ask random other things would be kind of difficult. So yeah, I don't really know at this stage, but at least for the next little while, I don't plan on doing too much beyond just comp videos and videos from home.
Yeah, absolutely. You're already doing a superb job as it is, but I'm like, I don't think you've done as many. Well, one idea I just thought of is vlogs.
Those are cool. So, yeah, those would be fun.
Yeah, like I know you've done. I think you've done a few, but like I guess it's more a time thing. You know,
yeah,
and,
definitely.
and people underestimate as well, like the effort that goes into editing videos too. Like I have, you know, like not in terms of popularity, but just like for uni and stuff, like collated over 100 videos on YouTube. Like they take like a bit of work. It depends on the content that you're doing as well. Do you like editing?
I don't mind it, but this like I hardly edit anything that goes up on my personal like YouTube channel because it, you know, I don't even have like an introduction screen or an outro or anything like that. I just chuck the clips together, export, and upload that. is basically how I do it.
I like it because it kind of just gets straight down to business, really.
I also think what I want to do is like a little bit more. So instead of like, you know, filming some stuff and chucking it up on YouTube as a vlog, like I have like an Instagram account, so you can do like things like go live on Instagram or have like a story on Instagram that everyone can see. And I think that's also pretty engaging. So like if I was going to a competition, it'd be cool. What I want to do, what would be cool to do, I think a lot of people would like, would just be, you know, to kind of document that on like an Instagram platform, take some photos, because that means like YouTube, if it's not super like gripping content, or if it's just like photos and random comments, like people aren't going to watch that. But if it's on Instagram, you know, just got a photo. Okay, here's my round one average. It's like 6.8. Here are my times, and then some other videos of the comp and stuff. That'd be engaging, I think.
Lewis, you're quite big into stories on Instagram. Do you find that you know, quite an engaging method to you know, to appeal to your various followers? One of which is myself.
Well, it was Snapchat originally, wasn't it? With that idea, I think I like it. You know, it's more sort of, you know, it have to be I guess more direct because you have less time. It's a video most of the time, and it also goes, you know, it's pretty instantaneous from when that moment has happened straight to your followers. It's sort of very, you know, on the moment. While a photo, you know, it can be, you know, could have been uploaded hours or days ago, whatever. But a story, because it's there for a limited time, then, you know, it's happened sort of. And yeah, I think it engages a lot more with your followers, whatever, anyone.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun for people to see. So like, for example, I'm going up for a competition in Canberra in a week and a half. So the following weekend, and I want to do something like that, just like, you know, document, going to the airport, going to the competition, hanging out, doing the solves, whatever.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. I'd love to watch that. I mean, you see a lot of people doing it, and
like,
it's
not on YouTube. Like, just do it on Instagram, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's less work. It's less work for me to just get my phone, do that.
But I guess in one other way, because you like I assume, you know, you also have to think about the monetization aspect of, you know, certain things as you're already doing. Would that be more of a fun thing as opposed to like a monetization aspect? Like,
definitely. Like, it is fun just like posting things on social media for people. Like, you know, in an ideal world, I would probably prefer like not to have, you know, these big social media things, but I think it's kind of fun for me, and I think other people get a kick out of it as well.
Mm-hmm. And a slightly different question, physical exercise. So some people, when it comes to kind of like mental type focused sport, well, not sports, but activities, say that, you know, it's good to be physically active because there's a lot of science to do with how being physically active helps with your mental well-being, endorphins, etc. Do you find that physical exercise is important when it comes to your general well-being, but is it a significant factor when it comes to speed cubing competitions, the ability to feel well mentally and your well-being? Because like I assume if you've had like a bad day, that can affect your kind of mindset.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, like before competitions, I don't really do, you know, exercise or anything like that, but you know, if you're tired, because it's such a mental sport, if you're tired and it's just such a mental game, then that can really have a bit of an impact, especially if you're in a bad mindset. If you've messed up solves, that can influence future solves, things like that. So necessarily, you know, I haven't really tested whether, you know, getting more exercise helps. Kind of hard to measure that really, but hard to measure that reliably. But I think that's kind of important for competitions.
It's all about your sleep the night previous to competition, I think.
Yeah, just exactly. Make sure you get good rest. You know, eat well, drink well, don't get sick, and then on the day, like there's enough adrenaline in you to the point where you're pretty energized when you go up and do your solves. So it's never really too much of a worry. Is being like too tired to do solves. It's not a very tiring activity anyway.
Well, for us it would be, because it would take us so long.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any speed cubing related injuries, Felix?
No, not really. Not really. I've heard of some people who've had like very few people who've had like a couple of problems with their like forearm muscles or like their thumb or something like that, just from like repetitive RSI, not RSI. I don't know what you call it. I don't know what they had, but yeah, like problems with their arms or wrist. But I think that's very rare, and I've never had any issues.
Yeah. Do you do any preventative exercises at all, like any stretches, or is it just more just?
No, I don't. But I don't. Yeah, I need to figure out what would be good, because maybe that would help. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Is that a method at all?
No, not many people. I haven't really heard of that, but I'm sure like if people started doing it, then it might catch on. If it was actually, if it was actually legit that doing these stretches and stuff before cubing would helps your muscles, then people would do it. But I haven't really heard of that.
I guess that's one of the beauties about speed cubing is that you don't really need to do all these stretches, all these exercises. You can kind of just go straight to the Rubik's cube, and is that one of the appeals about speed cubing is that it's easily accessible. So like once you learn how to solve a cube, you say you've got like 100 like cubes around you, like you can just grab one, scramble it up, and then just kind of solve it. Like it's just so quick and instantaneous kind of thing.
Exactly. You don't have to spend 10 minutes putting on ski boots and all the clothes and everything. You just grab a cube and solve it. Exactly. And it's something you can do casually as well. There's not many hobbies where you can just, you can go out hiking for a day or, go doing some sort of activity and also do your hobby. But with a cube, you can take it pretty much anywhere and do cube pretty much anywhere. So that's why it's cool.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you to have over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube? I know in that particular video you made, it's not something that you particularly focus on, but just stepping back, like right now, like what does that mean to you? Because that's a phenomenal number, and a lot of hard work has gone into your videos. What does that mean to you?
Well, stepping back from it's pretty neat that that many people are interested in the kind of thing that I'm doing. I think I don't think I put that much effort into editing videos or anything. I just film stuff that I do and then upload it, and I think that's interesting for people. But it's pretty cool, I guess, and it's nice that I'm a role model and people take an interest in all this speed cubing stuff. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really think about it very much at all, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. But I noticed you had the silver YouTube button. As like a memento. That's really cool to have.
That's the one they give you at the 100,000 subscribers. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
like and there's never really a goal or anything, but when I get something like that, cool. It's cool.
Yeah. When you're uploading videos, do you have much of a focus on the amount of views you get? Because obviously AdSense would be a little part of that as a monetization aspect. So views in some way count, they do a lot towards how much you make. But are you at a point where, because of your large following, you don't necessarily have to go for quote unquote clickbait or you can kind of just upload freely? Yeah.
Exactly. For a long time I've never really actively tried to grow my audience by doing anything like that. And I've just been lucky enough that speed cubing has grown and enough people have cottoned on to the hobby that have joined the hobby that my YouTube channel has naturally grown along with that, and that I've been able to maintain, my rankings and records and that sort of thing. So that's how it's grown. The channel has been a byproduct of the records and the growth of speed cubing. So yeah, I never really try and post clickbait or anything like that. I just post my vids.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any like role models in particular, be it in speed cubing or elsewhere?
Not really, to be perfectly honest. Like, different people have their different strengths, whether that's in speed cubing, some of the top speed cubers have their own individual traits that are really cool in their solves. So like, okay, you do that like better than anyone else in the world. That's really cool. And then there's people in speed cubing as well who are really nice people, really friendly people, fun to be around, and very generous with themselves and with their time. And that's something I looked up to and respect as well. Then outside speed cubing, I mean, no one there's no like one person that I just like worship and admire. I don't know if that's necessarily healthy. I'm sure there's good models everywhere, good role models everywhere, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, cool. So, Lewis, did you have any other questions for Felix, or?
Well, more than a question. I mean, I just beg him to come to that Madrid tournament.
Yeah. I definitely plan on doing so, unless anything else gets in the way. Like, I'm coming.
No, it would be quite an experience, man. Like, and then thing is, well, yeah, I encourage him to break the record, right? But even if he didn't, I'd still be amazed just how quickly he would solve that.
Yeah. I'll try and win that one, but it's tricky.
There's your encouragement there. There's your next goal. You have to break it.
Break the record. Oh.
In the Northern Hemisphere.
Okay. Try.
But it would be really cool. The tournament is happening, so I mean, I would probably go, regardless. But you can come over. That's for sure.
Fantastic. That sounds very good.
If you can bring Jono with you, that would be great. He can cover the tournament.
Yeah, you can do Cube Media.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe on Cube Skills. Nah. So have you been to Spain before? Have you been to Madrid or anything, Felix?
No, haven't been there.
Does going to a new country can that is that more exciting? Well, it obviously is more exciting than it is daunting. Does that affect your speed cubing at all when you're going to a different country, a different culture?
Sometimes at some tournaments in the past, when it's been like just me in, like when it's not been a big competition, but I'm like a kind of a special guest, or like I'm the guy that everyone's watching at the competition. I kind of feel a little bit of pressure to like try and do very well for the people that are there, because I'm only the chances are I'm not going to be back there anytime soon. So the pressure is for me to like perform well for these people, because that's the only time that I'm going to be there like live. So
I'm putting pressure on you now.
Yeah, as opposed to like Australia, like I feel like there's less pressure, there's less people watching, and I'm always going to be doing comps here. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And with the breath that you take, Felix, when you do your solves, is that more a ritual type thing, or is that actually to steady yourself?
It's more a routine, but I think it also kind of for me, it's just become like a routine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So no real physiological benefits per se.
I think it does. I think it does have physiological benefits, but I don't know that I necessarily feel that. But I feel like if I maybe did a solve without doing that breath, and I might feel a little bit more tense or something like that. I don't know. Like taking a deep breath definitely helps you relax. Or maybe just a placebo, but I don't know. I feel like it works.
Yeah, or either way, placebo works as well. So there you go. All right. I'd like to thank Felix a lot for coming on the 7th episode of From Melbourne to Madrid. Really appreciate it. I know Lewis did as well. And I'm sure Lewis is looking forward to you going over to Madrid for the Kibbing tournament coming up, which is when? When's that?
Oh, that'll be
mean, coming up
next year, July next year. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is coming up, but yeah, it is coming up, but we'll take it a day at a time. Can't take each day for granted, man. But it'll be really cool, definitely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Feliks, again, and thanks everyone.